Now, London-based think tank is warning that growing food insecurity and hunger in Nigeria's Middle Belt, coupled with terrorism and banditry in the region, could cause society to collapse and result in an unprecedented wave of mass migration, including to Europe. A report just released by the International Organization for Peace Building and Social Justice says challenges in the Middle Belt facing Nigeria and Europe's leaders are significant, but the cost of doing nothing is even greater. Joining me from London to discuss that disturbing finding is the report's commissioner, Dr Richard Ikiebe. Dr. Richard, good to see you, and thanks for your time. You know, violence in the Middle East is often painted as an ethno-religious conflict between nomadic Muslim herders and mainly Christian indigenous farmers. But how much impact is climate change having on the violence there? Dr. Richard Ikiebe, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you clearly.
All right, okay. Thanks for your time. And I'll take that question again. Speaking of violence in the Middle Belt, which has often been painted as an ethno-religious conflict between herders and indigenous farmers. How much impact is climate change having on the violence there?
Yeah, when you're talking about ethno-religious crisis in Nigeria, I think people are forcing the issue of climate change into the discourse. And by the way, nobody is saying that climate is not an issue or it's not a factor. But if we ignore the more important factors and settle only on climate change, we may miss the point, because if you want to propose solutions to a problem, you first of all have to understand what the key issues to that problems are. So yes, climate change is an issue, but it's not the only issue, and I don't think it's the big elephant in the room. I think we really need to settle on finding out what are the various factors and then decide on what are the best solutions to the problem. By insisting that it's just climate change alone, I think we miss the point. And I'm not sure whether anybody has really studied the value or the component that climate change brings into the conflict. So, is there a climate change problem? Yes, but I don't think it's the big elephant in the room.
Your report is quite stark, suggesting Nigeria could implode if the present turmoil in the Middle Belt goes unchecked. If that happens, what are the implications for West Africa and Europe?
Well, the implications for West Africa is already happening. We've seen what's happening in Mali, in Burkina Faso, now in Niger. Now it has gone to what has been happening in Central African Republic in the last 10, 15 years. There is a problem that is not just a Nigerian problem. It's a West African problem, and indeed it's an African problem. Anybody that thinks that the issue of climate or herder farmer or whatever it's called, or poverty, it's not limited to Nigeria. It is so big that any government that ignores it is doing that at a detriment to itself. I think Europe already knows that, and America already knows that, which is why they have bases in Niger and other places. Because anybody that denies people food denies them what I consider a fundamental human right. And by this crisis that we see in the Middle Belt, in the Northeast, in the Northwest, farmers are not able to go to the farm, or even when they do go to the farms are destroyed, by these miscreants. They call them jihadists or whatever they are. You see, as long as you take food away from the people on the table, you are causing a major problem.
On this, what's your message to the Tinubu administration about dealing with the crisis? Well,
this government, more than the previous governments, it seems to be paying particular attention. At least they have recognized that there is a link between food insecurity and insurgency. They have recognized that, and I think that is a starting point. The other thing is to now propose concrete plans, concrete solutions that address the situation. It is not sufficient to say that we recognize that there's a food problem. Virtually every organization internationally and nationally that is responsible for agriculture and food has already identified that Africa is setting itself up for famine, for starvation. And when that happens, you never know where this problem is going to end. So for this government, they've started well. I hope that they can come up with very concrete solutions. It's not talking, it's action that the people in the Middle Belt are looking for.
Many thanks for your time. Now, Britain's King Charles has remembered his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, 1 year on from